Hey, hello again. Well, I'm out for a little snowshoe. I was dying to see some snow. I don't know about you, but I love the snow. I love to play in it, I love to snow ski, cross-country ski, snowshoe. And it's just so pretty when you get out in it, especially if it's falling. Well, we've got some snow in the mountains here. I'm up near Crystal Mountain Resort, and just off the side of the road somewhere, tromping through the trees, looking for a pretty place to paint. Here's a nice scene I came across. I might come back for this. I'm going to keep walking a little bit. Under the trees, the snow is hard. You could almost walk without snowshoes. But as soon as you get out from under the trees, the snow is really deep and really soft. Well, it sure is nice tromping around in the woods in the snow, but I do want to give myself a little time. Since we're in the middle of winter, the days are really short. The sun will set, especially here in the mountains, before you know it. So I want to get started. This is the scene I want to paint. I like it. I like the range of colors in the water. I'm not sure if it's coming through on the video, but there's a lot of shades of green and red in that water. That should be fun to paint. I like that piled up snow on the fallen log. There's some color in the shadows of that snow, yellows and reds. It's not just black and white. And then I also like the little path of the stream off in the distance. It's kind of flat water, which will be fun to paint here in the foreground, and then a little bit of rapids in the background. I would love it if it had more of a view of this mountain in the background. If I back up a little, I could borrow that mountain. Or I might just take some reference photos and play with it some more in a bigger painting in the studio. But either way, I think I'll set up here and decide on a composition. This is also interesting, this fallen log this way. That's also pretty. Very busy though, very complicated scene. So I think I'll stick with this and get set up and do a quick painting. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. I'll start by doing a quick charcoal sketch, just to lay in the big shapes, the big composition. I have the big shapes in now on the charcoal sketch. I've erased away the normal 1/3 lines that I put down to help me quickly draw the composition. Now I'll proceed with the turpentine wash. I'll get my easel set up, lay out my normal colors. If you've watched my other videos, I have a standard set of colors I like to use. Burnt umber, burnt sienna, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, cad red, cad yellow lemon, yellow ochre. I also have a few other colors if I need them. I have a cold gray to introduce some gray into a background. Phthalo blue, phthalo green if there are more intense colors. I don't think I'll need any of those today. They're all pretty muted earth tones in this scene. Maybe a hint of phthalo blue in the shadows in that snow. I use a little bit of liquid original to help the paint dry quickly when I'm painting outdoors. It's cold here, as you would expect. Winter under the trees in the mountains, up near a ski resort. I think it's time for a hot cup of coffee. I'll start with this big bristle brush. It's a number 12 Utrecht. It's probably about an inch wide. I've used it for years. It's nice and soft and broken in. The turpentine wash is just a very diluted oil paint. I dilute the paint with artist turpentine and just kind of scrub in the tonal values. I'm working on a panel that I gessoed myself. It's just acrylic gesso on masonite. Since the scene is high contrast, it's got some deep darks in the water and some very lights in the snow. I'm going to put down a pretty thick underpainting this initial turpentine wash. I'm going to try to go kind of thick, and then I'll use a brush with a little bit of turpentine and wipe away the lightest lights. That should give me a value pattern that I can follow very quickly with the full final paint. Looking at the scene, I'm going to start with a burnt sienna and sap green, and maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson, maybe a little bit of burnt umber for this underpainting. Just lay in the tones thick and quick, and then I'll wipe away the lightest lights. You may notice that there's a lot of water dropping from the tree above onto my palette and onto my board. It should be okay. A little bit of water mixed in with your oil paint doesn't hurt anything. I'll let this turpentine wash set up just a little bit and then blend it softly. I really want to blend the water, especially here in the foreground where it's so smooth. There's also a nice reflection on the water. It's reflecting the white clouds of the sky. Really gives that sense of depth and calm. I want to capture that as well, so I'll wipe that out. You may wonder why I bothered to do an underpainting on the snow at all, since the snow is white. But if you do a little bit of an underpainting, it knocks the white off of the panel and makes it easier, at least for me, to judge the values. And then it gives you the chance to also draw the value structure. And also, those warms in the underpainting will come through later and help make your painting glow. I took a few minutes there to mix up some preliminary colors. I try to group my colors into value families, and I try not to have more than 4 or 5 value families. I just think the composition reads stronger the fewer families. Now I'll take a brush with a little bit of turpentine and wipe away the lightest lights to bring back the value pattern. I'll also try to blend the paint just a little more now that it's set up a little more. It's drying a little slower than normal because of the cold temperature, I think. Here you see I'm splattering the foreground just a little bit with some turpentine off this big mop brush. I want to suggest the shapes of the rocks I see under the water randomly. I don't want to paint each rock individually. This is a nice way to get a nice random pattern if you're careful. As I'm wiping out the lightest lights, I'm also introducing little hints of other colors, like some cerulean blue in the far background, just to push that background back. Blue makes things recede. Red and yellow make things come forward. I'm also introducing some darks to really reinforce the value pattern. So I'm not just wiping away the lightest lights, but before that paint really sets up, I do want to get those lights wiped out. Big value pattern in now, and I'm liking the illusion of that pool of water in the foreground. Now I'll take a softer brush. It's another Utrecht. It's a synthetic filbert, and I'll very gently lay in some color on top of that water. I'm just going to let some of the paint drag off. I don't want to completely paint over that underpainting. I think it's doing a nice job of telling the story of some sticks and stones and other stuff at the bottom of the water. So I'll try to leave as much of that underpainting there as I can, and then just move forward lighter and lighter and closer. Then I'll move forward from the background to the foreground, getting more vibrant, darker shadows as I come closer or as I get closer to the center of interest. Alright, I stood back for a minute and I had a cup of coffee and put some hand warmers in my gloves because it is cold, and took a look at what the painting needs. It obviously needs the darks darkened and the lights lightened a bit more. I also see that I need to reinforce the shadow on this side of the snow. It has a beautiful, almost lavender color in reality here, with yellows and reds in certain pockets. I need to add some of the moss that's growing on the log toward the base of the log, and then some of the branches coming out of the center of interest out here with some snow on them. That'll be a nice crisp light over the darkest part of the pool. I also want to develop some of these stones in the water here, add some shadows and some warmer tones, especially as it moves forward. But it's pretty close. You know, I've captured most of what I think I need to in the scene, so I'll just play a little bit more here, add a few of those pretty tones in the shadow in the snow, and then I'll pack it up. I'm mixing up some blacks. I tilt the blacks either blue or red or green. I don't use an ivory black out of the tube normally while I'm painting outside. I normally just mix the black so that I can tilt it in a certain direction. So in the far shore, I'm going to paint almost my blackest black, and in some pockets I see kind of a warm shadow, in others I see a cool shadow. I'll try to reserve my darkest darks for the center of interest, which I think will be across the bank. There's a nice fallen log under the water. I can't really go dark there, but the bank right above that point I can go pretty dark, and then there's a snow-covered branch right above that. I'll take this small pointed round and just add a few lines for the darkest branches, and then a little bit of white on that with alizarin crimson to hint at the snow on those branches. Well, I got finished. I'm about frozen. It is cold out here, but I had fun. Beautiful location, beautiful place. Here's the finished painting. I think the values are there. there's more detail to be added. I'd like to do something more with this foreground water, make those beautiful warm stones that are in the water pop a little bit more. So I'll take it back to the studio, work on that a bit, maybe add a little more brightness to the snow, especially on the branches in the background, clean up some of the areas. It's pretty rough, pretty quick, but yeah, I think I absorbed the location now. I can go back and do a nice job on the studio painting. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you liked getting out in the snow with me. As always, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the trail.